So for the next month, we are going to step into one of the most fascinating and also one of the most misunderstood movements in early Christianity. Thanks to remarkable archaeological discoveries made within the last century, we now have the opportunity to hear the Gnostics speak in their own voices, rather than just the voices of those who wrote about them and typically wrote to criticize and to inauthenticate them. The Gnostics were not a single church or an organized movement. Instead, they were a diverse collection of spiritual communities that flourished during the first 3 centuries after the death of Jesus. The word Gnostic itself comes from the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge. But this wasn't your intellectual knowledge that the word gnosis implied. Rather, it was a direct, transformative experience of the divine. It was an inner awakening. If you got gnosis, you were awakened to one's true spiritual identity. Gnosticism emerged within the rich spiritual landscape of the lands of those times of what was known then as the Roman Empire, where Jewish mysticism, like the Essenes that we explored earlier this year, a Jewish mystical group that both created or was created before Jesus and then many believe deeply influenced the way Jesus taught. But there was also Greek philosophy, particularly Platoism, and early Christianity ideas that were floating around, and Egyptian religions and other mystery traditions that were known at that time. It was certainly a time in our human evolution of spiritual creativity, as people wrestled with that profound question about God, the nature of God, the soul, the meaning of life. Our understanding of the Gnostics changed dramatically when in 1945, so not that long ago, less than a century ago, a collection of ancient manuscripts was discovered near the Egyptian village of Nag Hammadi. And before the discovery, nearly everything we know about Gnosticism came from the critics, especially early church leaders like Irenaeus, who wrote extensively against and disclaiming whatever their beliefs and practices were. But hidden in this clay jar for nearly 1,600 years were more than 50 ancient writings, including what had been discovered before, but now we had a complete version of the Gospel of Thomas, the Gospel of Philip, the Gospel of Truth, and my favorite, the Gospel of Mary. You know, that's the only female representation in the early Christian movement. For the first time, scholars could hear the Gnostics describe their own beliefs instead of relying solely on those who disagreed with them. And as Christianity became more organized during the 2nd to around the 4th century, church leaders increasingly emphasized one authoritative teacher, one canon of scriptures that they voted on and what would be included in that, and one understanding of Jesus, one path to salvation. The Gnostics challenged each of these belief systems that the church was seeking to put forward. Rather than placing ultimate authority in institutions, in the church and in the priests, they emphasized direct spiritual experience. Rather than limiting revelation to public doctrine, they believed God continued to reveal truth within an awakened heart. They often interpreted scriptures symbolically, or we might say metaphysically, rather than literally, and understood Christ in profound mystical ways. And because of these differences, these writings were eventually rejected by the church structures, the people who were at the top of the burgeoning Christian church. Most of them were destroyed, and the community gradually disappeared. And yet their beliefs never disappeared entirely. Many Gnostic Christians held Jesus in the highest reverence, but they understood his mission differently than the burgeoning church leaders did. Rather than focusing primarily on Jesus' death as payment for humanity's sins, the Gnostics saw him as a divine revealer, the embodiment of divine wisdom expressed, and the one who was here to awaken humanity to their forgotten identity. His purpose was not simply to give people doctrines to believe, but to awaken them to who they truly are. Many Gnostic writings claim that after the resurrection, Jesus shared much deeper spiritual teachings privately with his disciples, and that information was secretly passed down to other leaders and held within these Gnostic communities. The teachings explored the soul's divine origin, the structure of spiritual reality, the nature of illusion, and the soul's path to divine fullness. When you look at many of the Gnostic Gospels, you will see them as if they were written as intimate conversations between Jesus and his individual disciples. It was the recording of their conversations and the revealing of even more expansive truths. One recurring theme through these writings is self-knowledge. The Gospel of Thomas says, "The kingdom of heaven is within." You've probably heard that part. And then it goes on to say, "Whoever knows himself will find it." Whoever is awake to that kingdom within will find the fullness of it. For the Gnostics, self-knowledge was never about self-improvement. It was about remembering the divine presence already within. And although various Gnostic schools differed in many ways, they shared several central themes. And perhaps the most defining of those themes, those beliefs that they held as a collective, was that every human being contains a spark of the divine. Sounds very unity, doesn't it? I'm thinking, Charles Fillmore did not have access to these Gospels, and yet we are aligned so closely with Gnostic, at least the general Gnostic beliefs. That divine spark, they believed, had become trapped in the body and in the distractions and the limitations of the material world, causing us to forget our true origin. And because of that, our human suffering is rooted less in sin and more in forgetfulness. Salvation comes not through ritual or sacrifice or simply believing the right ideas, but through awakening. As we remember our true nature through this gnosis, we begin the journey back into conscious union with God. That makes Gnosticism an intensely inward and mystical path. And in many ways, for those who are a part of unity communities and other New Thought kind of movements, we are on that same journey of inner discovery. So this morning, as we have a few minutes that we always set aside for that inward journey, albeit a short one, I'm going to invite you as we prepare to move into meditation just to get comfortable where you're at. You might want to set aside anything you might be holding on to. It's sometimes easier if you can close your eyes, if you're comfortable with that, so that all of your attention is now directed inward, is now awakened to what is unfolding in this present moment. And as we take a few centering breaths, we allow those breaths to bring us to even greater and greater awareness of who we are, the body that we inhabit, and most importantly, to connect with that divine spark, that light, that Christ presence within each of us. Jesus taught that this connection could not happen through the head, or at least not the head alone. It must invoke and be centered in our hearts. And so I invite you just to move your attention, your awareness to your heart space. See if you can't listen closely enough to become aware of your heart as it rhythmically beats in this moment. And just as that heart is always beating, even though the majority of the time we're not conscious of it, that divine light within us is always present, even though through our inattention it may have dimmed. So we put our attention on this light, and as we focus our energy there, it grows. We bring to mind something we deeply appreciate, whether it's in nature or in our relationships. We bring that to mind to activate even greater expansion of our heart center. Focusing on the very many blessings that are a part of our life instead of what may not be working. Start counting those blessings one by one. All the good that is in our life, in our spiritual community, in the greater community, and in the world. Imagine that small light that always burns is now intensifying, spilling out beyond the walls of your body into this room, interconnecting and awaking us in even greater ways. And as we can sit in our own blessings and feel them overflowing, we send those out so that others may awaken to the good that is present in their life in this moment, even in the darkest of situations. These teachings invite us to know and to awaken to this divine light in greater and greater ways. That is how we create heaven on earth. And so I invite each of you to commit in this moment to remember at least once a day, I am the light of God. To invoke that light as the energy of love and allow it to be what leads and guides all of the interactions throughout your day. Take another deep breath and just say thank you. Thank you to know that I am a part of something that is beautiful, that is here to light up the world, that is here to be the divine in expression, and for the many ways in which that unfolds in each of our lives. And as you take another deep breath, begin to bring your attention back to this time and space. Aware once again of your body and the chair supporting you. And whenever you're ready, you can open your eyes. So for the Gnostics, self-knowledge was never about self-improvement. It's kind of our thing these days. How do we improve ourselves? It was about remembering the divine presence within. And although various Gnostic schools differed in many ways, they shared several central themes. And perhaps the most defining was that every human being contained this spark of the divine, that this divine spark somehow gets trapped in the distractions and the limit. Oh, I already did that part. I'm like, this sounds very familiar. I'm repeating myself. All right, reset. So remember that part. Apparently it was important. It's also important to remember that there was never one unified Gnostic church or even group of communities. There were many schools, many teachers, and many interpretations, kind of like Christianity is today, if you will, because there are dozens upon dozens upon dozens of iterations of Christianity that all have their own sort of unique lens in which they look at and engage with life. And although these organized Gnostic communities eventually disappeared, many of their central insights continue to resonate today. Again, that divine presence within each person, spiritual awakening through direct experience, symbolic or metaphysical approaches to sacred texts, the integration of both psychology, which is sort of Platoism, if you will, back in that day, and spirituality as ones that are complementary of each other, ones that are necessary to support us in this awakening. For modern contemplatives and spiritual speakers, these writings often valued less, are often valued less as an alternative history. It's not rewriting what happened, we're learning something new, rather as more of an invitation to awaken, to encounter the divine directly, rather than to merely think about it or talk about it. For those of us in Unity and other New Thought traditions, these are meaningful points of connection. And while Unity affirms the essential goodness of creation, that's one of the ways we differ. The Gnostics thought the material world was not the best place you wanted to be. We have both traditions sharing common beliefs, even though we never really knew this other tradition until more recent years. So it just tells you that it often tends to be passed from generation to generation, even if it isn't in a formalized way. Both teach that transformation comes through awakening rather than through fear, through remembering rather than through earning our way there, through discovering the presence of God already at the center of our being. So in the coming weeks, we're going to explore these texts in greater detail. And as we move through that, our goal is not to decide whether the Gnostics were right or wrong. Rather, it's to listen with open minds and discerning hearts. Every spiritual tradition holds a piece of the larger puzzle. As Unity teaches, we don't need to accept everything to learn something. Many of these conversations deepen our own search, not simply for more information, but for a more intimate experience of what we call God, already waiting, the invitation already expressed for us to say yes to. May we discover that we are the light that we seek. Well, it is our opportunity now to share of our financial good with this community. And being the first Sunday of the month, we haven't done it in a while, but I just wanted to remind you that we are always willing, open, ready to receive any little extra that you can give into our reserve funds. We celebrate that we've been able to tackle all of the expenses that have come up from the property insurance and replacing an air conditioner and the other things that require attention, especially around this aging building, as well as doing this beautiful landscaping that so many of you contributed to make happen. But we've just about depleted, well, in fact, we pretty much are zero in our reserves right now. So it's time to start rebuilding those so that we have plenty of funds. So if you can, eke an extra $10 or $20 out a month, you figure if 50 or 60 of us start doing this, it multiplies in much greater way. And of course, if you have the means and feel called to bless us with greater amounts, then we gratefully receive. So however it is that you share this morning, share with love, with gratitude, and from that sense of abundance, because we live in an abundant universe, and we can tap into that abundance for our own lives and for the lives of this community. In just a moment, the ushers are going to come forward row by row and invite you to come up, place your gift in the larger basket, or if it's not your Sunday to share, or you do so electronically, you can just add your energy to it or use the little card that says, I give online, to place in the basket, and then receive an affirmation to bless you this week from the smaller basket. So let us take what we offer today into our hands and into our hearts and bless it together. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, Father, Mother God.
We're going to stand up. We're going to go all the way around the room, join hands, make a big, big, big circle all the way around the room, and we are going to do our peace song.
And so as we go into this day, into this week, focusing on enlivening that divine spark within us, we go knowing our prayer for protection. We'll do it as call and response. The light of God surrounds us. The love of God enfolds us. The power of God protects us. The presence of God watches over us. Together, wherever we are, God is, and all is well. All right. Good to see you. I did. It was nice to see family and just be away, Good to see you, Shirley. I'll take that. Well, hello. How are you guys? I'm doing well. You traveling this summer?